right. Let's see. As notifications go out, we'll get going live. A little bit different scenery here. For those in the US, you just saw the debates. I'm sure it was, if you guys watched that, a lot of people were watching. So if you have a question, though, throw it into the chat. Using a different video setup here, so I don't know if everything will look okay, but let me know where you're from, where you're joining me from, and any questions you might have. So let me know how things are going. As I said, the debates were just happening if you are in the US, and so I'm sure a lot of people are online, but certainly went better than it did the last time, that's for sure. So hope everybody is doing well. And let's see. So open to questions. If you guys have questions, let me know. It's a little bit late here in the office, but came in to do some work and then also answer any questions you have. So let me know. Or I'll just hang out and wait. I mean, I can do that too. So you guys can just sit there and watch me. I'll work as I, let's see. Let me know where you're joining me from. Say hello. Love to hear, some feedback, or if you got questions. If you got questions about anything parenting related, I'd be happy to answer them. I'm not sure I like this setup though. Trying to figure this out. Always trying to get better video, better audio, better lighting. And the problem most of the time is that I use my phone to go live, and then I sit there with my finger on the screen like this. Hey Jesse from Chicago, right on. Good to see you. Welcome. First time watching live. Yeah, it's weird. The live. I've been doing a little bit more lives lately. Just because recording is quite there's a lot involved, and so what I've been doing is really focused on my course, and my course is launching on Wednesday. So for anybody that is watching and is interested in the course, I'd love to talk to you about it. You can email me. info@daduniversity.com if you have any interest in talking about it. But yeah, it's the purpose of the course is to help dads be more confident in their parenting, and we go over everything from mindset to how to communicate, discipline, what kind of legacy you want to leave. There's so many good topics to cover, and so it's really, really important that we cover those things. And so I've created a course working with a small group of dads. It's going to be live for 8 weeks, and it's going to be both, or I should say, both fun and informative. Got some things planned to, hopefully keep it somewhat entertaining, as serious as it is. Hey, Trevor from Utah, right on. So Trevor had asked about, is asking about teething. Yeah, so teething with our child, my daughter didn't have it as bad. My son, it was really bad. And we did two things. We did use those teething biscuits, they're called, and they were really helpful. But even more helpful was frozen toys. And so they were like these little, they almost look like a dog toy, like a chew toy. It was like these circular things, and we would freeze those. And I tell you, our son was a drooler. He would have he'd be teething and drooling and such. But those frozen toys, I don't even know what they were called, teething rings, something. But we would be able to, you'd freeze them. That's what they're made for. And then the cold would feel good on their we didn't really use any medicine or medications or anything like that. Those teething rings worked well. And then also, like I said, the teething biscuits. He would just always, he was uncomfortable and slobbering, and it was like almost like a puppy. He just would do that. So that worked for us. That's probably what I would say. How old is your daughter, Trevor? Let me know. But yeah, as they are growing, the teething is it's one of those things you get through. Anybody else has questions? Let me know where you're from, where you're joining us. There's some people popping in as the debates end. I figured it was funny. I was going to go live earlier, and then I realized that the debate was on, and that wasn't going to happen. So I had to watch that debate. I won't give you my opinion, but I'm going to not be political on my channel. That's for sure. So what else is new? Let's see if we can pick. I didn't pick a specific topic to discuss tonight. I really just wanted to hang out and see what questions people had and see if I can answer them. So she is 7 months old. Yeah. So that's about right. Yeah. I think the teething rings and the biscuits will probably be best. Let me see if I can. Hey, Brady from Minnesota asked, what's something we should do more research on that most people wouldn't normally expect in the early stages after birth? Well, I can tell you, for me, all of the things that deal with me as a father, the emotion, the stress, the patience, those are the things to me that I think need more research and more work on. And that's what a lot of my channel is. I'll just say it, the mom forums and groups and things, they talk a lot, about teething and diapers and but men, talk about that too. And then they'll talk about, what's the best stroller to get. But I'm going to be honest, that's not why I created this channel. That's not those aren't the topics to me that are crucial. Sure, it's important to, figure out that stuff, but that's not really stuff that people struggle with. What people struggle with, and this is the feedback that I get and the talk that, I talk with so many people, is that, a dad is saying, I'm scared, or a soon to be dad scared, or, what, I have anxiety, or I'm stressed, or I'm not getting along with my wife, and, we're not being intimate. These are the kinds of topics to me that are much more important. It's the mental health of dads. It's the life things, and those, and for us to be able to talk about those honestly, that to me is the most important part. So, I think Brandon, you just said, I'm still scared 7 months in. Absolutely. And part of that is the unknown. That is what is often scary. They said anxiety is the fear of the future, and depression is the worry or the dwelling of the past. And, one of the things that I have talked about is trying to be more in the moment, is being more present. And that's really what this channel was about, is the things that I dealt with, the things that I have difficulties with, the things that I've overcome. That's what I wanted to help others with. And hey, listen, I still deal with these things. This is granted, I'm in it every day. I'm producing content and I practice what I preach. I still get anxiety. I still have fear. I'm approaching the teenage years with my kids, and I've got a ton to learn. I've learned so much over the years. about toddlers and babies and doing that. I've been studying teens. I've gone to classes and been trying to up my game on the teen stuff, and that's partly because I have a soon to be teen. But it's a journey, and this is it's something that I think those are the things and those are the topics to me that are really, really important. Caleb, how's it going? I just saw a question come in. First daughter coming any day now. I was just curious what to expect the first few days home from both the baby and mama. I know stress is going to be high, so how'd you cope with it? I'm not sure if you saw, but I had created a video called what was the name of it? It's like bringing the baby home, and it talks about just that and the different things that happen just within the first few days. I can tell you, for me and my wife, when we brought our son home for the first time, we basically looked at each other, looked back, looked at the baby, and go, okay, what do we do now? You want to clear your schedule, that's for sure. And you want to soak it in. It's something that is brand new. There's not a manual for it. I will say, just based on your comment, there's certainly value in having some knowledge or expectations about what is to come. But your last line is concerning to me. It says, I know stress is going to be high, so how do you cope with it? Well, what if you go into that situation not thinking that it's going to be stressful? Because bringing a baby home shouldn't be stressful. It should be a beautiful thing and a happy thing. It should not be a stressful thing. And so that's part of the mindset shift that we make. Now, instead of maybe saying that or say, hey, what are some of the things that I might not be familiar with? What are some of the things that are going to be new to us? But stress and setting yourself up for that before it even happens is part of the problem. And that's what anxiety is. Anxiety is worrying about the future, even when it doesn't happen. I recently had some comments on my channel about a guy was dealing with his girlfriend, and he says, we think, or it was something to the effect of, I can't believe it. She might be pregnant. I don't know what I'm going to do. And, it was a pretty emotional post. And my response was simple. I said, go confirm that she's pregnant first before you worry about it. We have a tendency to, I have said, we have a tendency to worry about things that don't happen or that aren't going to happen, or, and what happens is that we have not, we stress for no reason, and we stress for things that don't actually happen. One of the sayings is the worst thing that ever happened to me never actually happened. And I've learned a lot about that, and especially with kids, we're so worried about what's going to happen in the future and how am I going to do this? And I think there's validity to that. I mean, there's validity to thinking about the future, but and making knowledge, but you have to look at what your mindset is. And going into it thinking it's going to be stressful, that's not helpful for me. Now, I will say, you could say, it's going to be a happy situation. Hey, maybe what's the worst thing that can happen? Granted, you don't want to think detrimental, but you say, oh, what's the worst thing is I have no idea what I'm doing. So you take some time and you think about it, and you take some time and you try different things. You're going to fail. This is one of those things where you are 100% certain that you're going to fail at things. It's the same thing in a relationship. We can't get every single thing perfect. And so with parenting, that's the same thing, is, not everything's going to be perfect. Be okay with the fact that you're going to make mistakes. Look at it as a positive thing. And if you go into it with that mindset, that's, to me, is the most important thing in parenting is your mindset. It is It is so important. This is why I talk about meditation. I talk about patience. I talk about gratitude. I talk about empathy, because all of these things are so powerful. These are the things that got me through the difficult times, and they still do, you know? So I think that, hopefully that answers it. We lots same. I think one of the things you struggle with is planning ahead. I'm not going to answer one of the other questions, but yeah, we all struggle with that. It's planning ahead too much. I'll go on to another question. I read that timeouts are not good. What do you think? I think that people don't know how to use timeouts, and so using them effectively. I think the word timeout maybe is not good. There's, calming mechanisms. Teaching your children to breathe and recognize different emotions is important. But if you've been on my channel for any period of time and watched some of my videos, I am not a fan of punishment. I'm a fan of discussing things and teaching, and I went. It's funny. There's a story back when my son. He was so young. I don't even know how young. He didn't know what was going on. And I tried to do a timeout, and he cried, and we argued. I argued with like a 3-year-old for an hour. It was a waste of an hour of my life. And so what I learned from so much of these things is that my mindset is really important. What am I trying to convey? And the other part of it too is mindset is understanding that a child that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and even older, they often don't know what they're doing. And they never know what they're doing. But you cannot apply an adult brain to a small child. And that's what we do. And so we expect them to understand right from wrong. We expect to understand reasoning. We expect them to understand boundaries. We expect them, all of these things that we expect from them. And it's not fair. So we get upset when they touch something that they were told not to touch. We get upset at the fact that they're not listening. We get upset at all of these things we get upset at. And it's not their fault. Their brain has not developed yet. And so we apply this reasoning and these things to these little children, these little babies. They are not out to get you. Your 3-year-old is not saying no and not listening to you because they think you're a jerk and trying to get to you. They're not listening to you because they have no idea what you're talking about. So this is something that we have to understand. And I wish I understood it sooner. I only understand it now. It's like I'm going through the things of teens, and I know that so much of my son's behavior is the changes that he's going through. It's hormonal changes, it's physical changes, it's emotional changes. I can't take that stuff personally. He teenager, that's what they do. So there are different ways of dealing with it, and that's a lot of what I teach. Hey, Dalton, good to see you. Brandon, good to see you. Bruno, Michael, thank you, Michael. Love your videos. Any tips on prioritizing family time compared to work? Yeah, here's the thing. You can't be you can't be perfect at everything all the time. And so you have to be mindful of that. And I work a lot. I enjoy my work. How to balance it or prioritize family time, I'd say you put it on the calendar. The same things you'd put on, you'd put a meeting on your calendar. You put that, you put family time on your calendar as well. Hey, 6:00 on Wednesday, I'm going to play a game with my child. Hey, on Saturday from 8 to noon, we're going to go for a bike ride. or we're going to sit down and talk, whatever it is. When you put it down and you make the time, that's what you do. Now you have to figure that out. It's different for everybody, the priority. The cool part about it is that if you're mindful, you get to start over every day. I know that right now, let's call it the last week. My family and I went on a little mini vacation here locally. Just went to a hotel locally near the beach, and we spent the whole time together for the most part. And so I knew that that was on the weekend. It'd come Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday of I didn't need to spend too much time with my, not need or desire or whatever, with my family. I caught up on stuff that I needed to get caught up on. So you have to be able to gauge that. And part of that is knowing, the people around you, engaging the people around you. If your spouse has certain requirements or desires about the time that you spend, you have to balance that with what you want to spend. And the same thing with your kids. And, you're better off having quality time than the quantity of time. And so I think for everybody, it's different. I do have some videos on work-life harmony, I call it, instead of balance. But it's never going to be perfect. It's all about priority. I will say nobody on their deathbed ever said I should have spent more time at the office. They're going to say I should have spent more time with the people that I loved. And so, keep that in mind. But there's a couple videos I have, if you go back, work-life balance, that kind of stuff. That'll probably help. Dan, congratulations. A new dad in May. Keeper versus striker. I'm about to be a dad in March. Any advice? Watch all the videos. I've got a lot of advice. Row Oath. I hope I'm just found out 2 weeks ago that my wife and I are expecting. I'm pretty much binged all your videos. Just wanted to say hi. Cool. Glad you're here. Hope you stick around. I'm glad, Dan, that the videos are calming you down a little bit. Here's the thing for everybody, because we're all, that's why a lot of people come, is that they're worried or they're concerned about the future. Is that, the first thing probably that I would say to anybody is that what you're feeling is normal. The anxiety and the stress and the uncertainty and the unknown and, all of that stuff is normal. We may not talk about it. We may not, and you see all these people who are, handling things. Maybe they post on Instagram or they're doing things and they handle things in a way that appears to be wonderful. And the truth is that it's hard. It is hard being a parent. It's hard being a father. It's hard being a mother. But the truth is, it's hard to be a kid too. It is hard to be a 3-year-old and not know what the heck is going on in this world. And you've got, parents telling you what to do. And it's, that's the part that I think we have to accept, is that it is not an easy role. It's just not. And doing it well and being thoughtful and mindful is even harder. That's the interesting part too, is that being a parent is hard. Bruno says hard, but extremely rewarding. You're right. It is. And it can be rewarding. When you come home and you come into the door and your children, run to you and hug you, that's a pretty darn good feeling. Now, at the same time, when you come home and they're asking you a ton of questions and they didn't clean up anything that you had written down or told them to clean up, and they're eating something that they weren't supposed to eat, those are those times where, it gets frustrating. And for some people, those aren't frustrations, but, I can tell you, for me, things frustrate me all the time. And so the question becomes, is how do I deal with that? What is my mindset to be able to deal with these stresses that happen? Because on top of that, I may have issues with my profession, my relationship, family. There's all these different dynamics happening. And so there was a question that asked, what's the most important thing? It is your mindset. It is learning how to deal with all of these things. That's the best advice I can give as a parent, is learn how to have patience. Learn how to approach a situation calmly. Learn how to have gratitude, to be thankful, so that when the stuff is crappy at home, you can actually look and be thankful for what it is that you have. And allow yourself to have bad days. I can tell you, I've been stressed out. I'm creating my first course, and it starts next week, and it's been very, very stressful for me. I'm sure I haven't been that wonderful to be around. I've been stressed. By the way, if anybody is interested, I am promoting that. If you are interested in the course, it starts next week. I'm just going to be working privately with a handful of dads. But if you are interested, email me, info@daduniversity.com, and we'll set up a call and talk and see if it's a good fit. Jamie had asks, I'm not a parent myself, but wondering, is it harder than you thought it would be? Yes. I figured it was going to be hard, but I think I only thought about the early years. So here's what happens, is that when you have a child, or you have a child on the way, you're not really thinking about parenting. You are thinking about the transition into fatherhood. You're thinking about the relationship with your partner. You're thinking about diapers and sleep and napping and those kinds of things. When your child hits about 1.5, 2, you start to think about other things. It isn't about napping and sleeping and eating and all that anymore. Now it starts to be about listening, and it starts to be about parenting, and it starts to be about other subjects that you start to worry about. And that's a lot of the things that I want to talk about, because that's the real hard stuff. I'm not going to minimize the fact that, transitioning from a single guy into a married dude, or, having a child, is not difficult. But a lot of that is just like, sleep deprivation and worry about the future. I actually think, for me, the hardest time was during the toddler years, when they are 1.5 to 5, and they start, the whining and the defiance. Those, for me, those were the hardest, because it started, you're forced to start to analyze the situation and think about the future, and think about, especially if you're going to be mindful about how you're handling these things. To me, that was really, really important. I wanted to be a good father. I wanted to be a good husband. And so I started thinking about how can I be better at these things? And so my daughter was 1, my son was 3, my mother had just passed away, which was devastating. And I figured there has to be better ways of doing this stuff. I'm granted, I came from a great family, but there are definitely ways to handle situations that are better than others. And when I say better, I mean better often for ourselves, rather than, granted, there's multiple ways to handle a situation sometimes for children, and experts will have different ways, and people have different views. I'll get asked all the time, like, about sleep techniques, or, about napping, or about, this and that. There are different ways in which, you can handle it, of whatever your preference is, and you'll be fine. But there are some other situations where I find, some commonalities of, looking at situations and say, okay, what is the optimal way to handle this situation? And a lot of it is certain psychology, and Dreikers, and there's some other psychologists who have sort of positive parenting and there's these philosophies of that which I really, really like and feel good about. And so those are the types of philosophies that I've brought into Dad University. And not everybody agrees. That's okay. What's cool is that you don't have to agree, and we can agree to disagree. That's what's awesome. And I think that that's a problem, at least in our country, in America here, is that people have lost the ability to agree to disagree. It's okay if we don't have the same views on something. We can still be friends. I have friends and I have family members even that might have different views than I do. That's okay. You can still respect somebody else and have a different view. And I think that that's gone. That's a lot of that is gone. The respect for other views. And it's the same thing in parenting. I may not agree with the way that you decide to, your parenting, but that's up to you. That's and the same for me. And so it's interesting when I'll get some comments sometimes where somebody will say, I didn't like the way that you said that. Your tip number 4 is wrong. I'm unsubscribing to you. And I actually laugh because it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate that somebody, I have 200 something videos and 99% of it is going to be positive for them. But there's that one little small thing that you just didn't agree with. And so as a result of that, you just forget everything else that somebody is saying. And we have that problem in politics, and we have that problem in our schools, and we have that problem in the workplace, and we have that problem everywhere. And that doesn't make sense to me. But anyways, I'll get back to some questions if you guys have them. Mr. Mayhem. Ooh, that's a good name. I grew up in an extremely abusive home where showing any semblance of weakness got you beat. My girlfriend and I have graduated college. We're 24. She wants a child now, but I'm scared to be a good dad. Yeah. Well, there's some things about, I'm not sure, what you defined as weakness. If weakness means emotion, or, not being able to handle something in some way, it depends how you define weakness, I guess. Yes, Jamie, I'm from America. So Mr. Mayhem clarified crying, love, things of that nature. Yeah, I mean, I was once called by my mentor a heart warrior. She called me that, and I appreciated that. And what that meant was that you can be what you would consider tough, whatever that definition is. It's masculine in some sense. Nowadays it doesn't. There's so many different definitions. But you can still be emotional. You can still have what would be considered feminine qualities. That doesn't mean that you're not masculine and vice versa. I'd like to think of myself as strong. Physically strong, emotionally strong, strong in values, strong in whatever, I find those to be valuable or attractive qualities that I want. Yet at the same time, I'm not afraid to cry. I start talking about my mother and her passing. You get me long enough, and I will shed some tears. So it is, to me, it is okay to cry, and especially. Sorry, I'm going. It's okay to cry. It's okay to show emotion, and Jake, I can see. There was a comment though about something that I think it was hidden for the. Let me see. You said pimples. There's little on their backside. If it's a rash, I mean, I'm not a skin doctor. We use a product called butt paste. It was incredible. Every single time we changed our child, we used butt paste. Didn't matter if they had a rash or not. We used it. Never once got a rash, diaper rash. If it is like little milia, it could be, which happens. Sometimes they even get it on their face. This was sort of my wife's department. She's a nurse. I would say you'd probably want, just to make sure, you'd probably want to ask your pediatrician, just because, I can't do any sort of medical diagnosis. But that's a common thing. But I think butt paste, Desitin, there's multiple products, but for us, butt paste was really good, and put it on every time. So hopefully it's just, something simple. If your child's discomfort, they're not comfortable or something, I'd get it fixed. Hopefully, if that's the comment you're talking about, I was able to view it, but it was, I don't know. I don't know what's happening. Matthew, good to see you. Mrs. M, we'll have a question from the lady. I'm 4 months pregnant, and my baby's dad is I'll say jerk sometimes. He can get super competitive. First it was cute, but now I only see red jealousy traits, which will only cause future problems. Yeah, I'm not sure what advice you're looking for. It sounds like your baby dad should, watch some videos. It's very difficult to give advice to somebody who's dealing with somebody else, because you don't know all the situation. So I'm not sure I can answer that question. Alan, so this is a good question. Alan asks and says, I'm not a very affectionate person. I'm a soon-to-be first-time parent. What are good tips or strategies to show affection to my newborn? This is a really simple one. Do it anyways. You are not affectionate for whatever reason. Whether you didn't get affection. I have this. There's a video about this, and it's talking about emotion and affection and how important it is to give affection to your children. So you're going to have to overlook the fact of whether you are bad or good or not, never had it or don't know how to do it or whatever. Just forget all of that and know that it is absolutely important to your child. If you want to be a good father, you need to be affectionate to your child. That's it. That's all you need to know. So you don't worry about yourself. Don't bad talk yourself saying, I'm not affectionate. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to do it. Doesn't matter. Do it and fail. Feel the fear and do it anyways. Kiss your child. Hug your child. Hold your child. You can massage their feet and their legs and their arms. Touch is very, very important to children. And so there really is no excuse. I think the way that you do it is by putting yourself in the place of the child, knowing that it is really beneficial for them, not you. Or I should say, it's not your issue. It's so important to them. So do it for your child. Hey, Jake, got a 1.5-year-old, been watching since your wife was 3 months pregnant and have helped you. Just want to know that I can't express in words how much I appreciate you. Well, Jake, I appreciate you too. I mean, thank you for sticking around and hanging out. And I remember you from one of the previous chats and stuff. And so it's it's great. If Jake, if you are interested, you might be interested in the class, having a 1.5-year-old. If you guys are interested in the course, yes, it's an investment. Yes, it's going to take your time. Yes, but it's going to be so valuable. email me info@daduniversity.com, and we'll set up a phone call and see if it's something that's good for you. So Mrs. M, she said, he even asked me to abort during a petty argument. I think you should probably seek out couples counseling. You're bringing a baby into this world. This is not really a parent-father issue. This is not really a parenting, and yeah, I mean, this is something that, if you're having relationship issues, I would seek out counseling. I mean, there's counseling online. You can go to, there's all kinds of things, or seek a local counselor. And even during quarantine and COVID, you can do it remotely via Zoom. And if he is unwilling, then you do it yourself, and do that. That's what I would say. Yeah, I mean, it's just, people, you can't control often what other people are doing. All you can control is your response to it and how you deal with it. So if you are ready to do that, then I would. Matthew says empathy, not envy. Wait, there must be, is there a, did Matt, Matt, my wife is pregnant. We are very excited. Just found out for sure a few days ago that we would be, what would be one of your personal top tips that you don't mention or have it in your videos? Besides, well, I talked about at the beginning of this video is your mindset. It's, looking, here's what you do as a father. And this is, I have this in my course, is look at where you want to be in 15 years with your child, and you work backwards. You want to have a child that wants to hang out with you. You want a child that's going to communicate with you. You want a child that is going to be respectful and, honorable to themselves and other people. Then you work backwards and you figure out, if this is the type of child that you want, here's what you need to do that, and I don't think we do that often. We don't look at the future and say, okay, here it is. A lot of time we're just putting out fires and figuring out what's going on, but you've got to have an end game. You want your child to be an individual. You want them to think for themselves. You want them to be able to handle situations and have resilience and all of these things. There's not one specific thing. I mean, I have hundreds of videos because there's just not one specific thing. That's the one thing about parenting, is that there's just, I have said empathy is the most important thing, because people force me to choose and pick one thing. But, gratitude, patience, these are all really, really important, especially when children are young. Oh, things are coming in. Let me see if I can. Dan had said, I think a good topic that I don't know that you've been through is how to be there for your wife during a miscarriage. You're right. That is a big one. And I may be able to do some research on it. What I will tell you is that I didn't go through it. And so that's what's hard sometimes is, people will ask me about divorce, and people will ask me about other things. And, somebody had asked me about, in vitro, or, having a surrogacy and stuff. And the difficulty is that there's so many important topics that I either need to get an expert on of that, because it's not something that I have personal experience with. And, I can't imagine how difficult a miscarriage would be. The advice I would have for any situation where it's traumatic, where, whether you're yourself or when it's your significant other or spouse goes through something, is having empathy for them. it is putting yourself in their situation and understanding that it's devastating. I'll give you a different example, and this is me when I finally learned about empathy. I was in grief counseling, and I was in a support group, and I was at a meeting. It was a support group. It was all men. It was only men. And no, this time I went to I'm trying to remember. Yes, no. So I was doing a grief counseling. I was in it, and it was all men. But I went to another group, and it was everybody. It was men and women. And I had been studying empathy and learning about this parenting and doing all these things. And people are going around the room talking about who they lost. And, I lost my mother, another guy lost his brother, another person lost their sibling or their other sibling, and then their whatever. And one of the people there had lost their pet. And my first reaction was, you lost a pet? That's not the same thing as me losing my mom. That's my first, I didn't say it out loud, but I'm just being honest and candid. That's the first thing that runs through my mind. And I saw how devastating it was for this person. And I immediately switched and went to empathy. And when this woman opened her mouth and started talking about her story, she lived alone. And she lived alone for years. And her pet was her companion for years. And so for her, it was so devastating. And I immediately switched, and I was kind of mad at myself for thinking that I immediately switched to empathy, realizing that who am I to judge somebody else's grief? And in that moment, that's where another moment, because I had many of them, where I realized how powerful empathy was. I put myself in the place of this person. It was an older lady. She was so devastated. She was much more emotional in that session than most of the other people there. So for her, it absolutely was devastating. And the reason I tell the story is that this is the same type of thing that we have to bring ourselves in parenting. When your 3-year-old is upset that they can't find their perfect dress, or that they don't get, to eat something or whatever, and they start crying, to them, it is very devastating. And it's hard for us as a grown man to put ourselves in the place of a 3-year-old girl and say, you know what, not having my dress that I really wanted, or that toy, or that cookie, or whatever, is really upsetting. And that is empathy. When you do that, when you put yourself in the place of the other person, you will relate to them different. You will handle things differently and better, and you will begin to understand what other people are going through. Now, this goes through, empathy can solve so many problems. We're talking about, racial situations and religious situations and political situations, whatever it is. You don't have to even agree with it. I didn't have to agree per se that woman should or shouldn't, whatever, making a judgment about it. All I had to do was say, wow, for that woman in her situation, she is devastated. She's so devastated that would suck to be in her situation. That's what we have to do with our kids. You put yourself in the situation of your child, everything changes. So I'm just telling you, it's a big one. I know I'm going off on a tangent. Matthew, hopefully that helped. Cool. Glad you guys enjoyed it. Mark, hello. Having my first randomly came across your videos. Thank you for taking the time. Absolutely. Thank you for being here. MG, good to see you. Laser One. We homeschool as well as working. Works great, but we never get the time to ourselves, and it gets very boring at times. Any tips for finding time to feel like an adult? Yes, when the kids go to sleep is one. Transform your, if you have a patio or a backyard or even your own bedroom, and transform that into something, and get maybe a little excited about it and say, hey, let's plan something. It depends what you need to feel like an adult. For anybody, I think you have to define that, with your significant other. And if it's for you, if it's just time for you, you said we, if it is time, the other thing is to trade off and hand off to each other. That was something early on, even though we weren't in quarantine, but my wife and I were really good at was, she would take the kids and do something, and I would have my free time, and then vice versa. Like on the weekends, I would get up early and watch the children so she could sleep in. And for her, that's what she wanted to do. So it's just talking out those things, with your partner. Enrique says, as a future dad to my firstborn girl due very soon, what are the top things that dads can do to teach their girls? I've got some videos on that. Here's what I would suggest instead of that question. I know that it feels like it's important. I wouldn't stress about that yet. Don't put too much in your brain about, teaching boy versus girl, or even that you're teaching things, because when the baby is born, you've got a lot of time. I mean, it'll go by fast, but you've got time. And so what happens is that time, I would say, is to spend, concentrating on improving things for yourself, improve your patience, improve your empathy, improve those things. The other thing I would say about teaching girls versus boys is don't treat them differently. I have a boy and a girl, and that was something we were very adamant about, was not treating them differently, other than wiping. Don't wipe a girl from back to front. As a baby, there isn't differences. Let them choose what they like, whether it be clothes, what they play with. Give them options. My daughter loved playing in the dirt, and people would have thought that that's a quote boy thing. She would wear whatever dress and then go play in the mud, and she's in martial arts as a young kid. We exposed her to it and said, hey, do you want to do this? And she was like, yeah. And vice versa for my son. My son has, what people would consider, he has empathy, and he's more sensitive to things, but yet still very boy. It's just, Mrs. M, your face is super chiseled. I will take that as a compliment. And she thought I was a cyborg. I take care of myself. I eat really well. Maybe that's why my face is chiseled. I am old though. So that's interesting. You get very interesting things. You should see some of the comments that I don't bring up. I've had some interesting ones. Most people are pretty positive, but there's every once in a while there's those people that like to say something. Mark, was there anything that surprised you or that you disagreed with about how your wife dealt with a certain parenting situation or decision? Yeah. Well, luckily we went to the same parenting classes, so we started out very similar, and we have very, very similar parenting views. I will say that, in the traditional sense, I would be considered a little bit more strict. Maybe, I'm more strict on time, making sure the kids are going to bed on time or stuff. But we agree on a lot of things. What I will say, I'm trying to think of a situation in which my wife is a little more liberal with what she is comfortable teaching our children than I am at the age. And what I mean by that, she's a nurse. So things about the body, sexually, those kinds of things, I think she would teach them earlier than maybe I would. And so my children were probably exposed to lessons and information and things earlier than I was probably comfortable with. She's talked about drugs and she's talked about alcohol and all kinds of things and this before I was probably ready or prepared or even had thought about it with our children, thinking that, so maybe in that sense, but, they're not drastic. But for the most part, we also have kind of the rules. If we do disagree, it's not in front of the kids. So there are situations that we may, have a little bit different philosophy, but we'll talk about it afterwards. And we're both very respectful of that. We don't defy each other in front of the children. I love when people ask questions that just don't make sense. Doinks, I'm not going to read your question, but thank you for asking. And I'll gladly tell you that no, belts are not a good option. Chains are not a good option. I don't think there is actually ever a good reason to physically hit a child. Never. I never have, never will. I'd like to think that my children are respectful and good values. They are respectful towards others. They are empathetic. Moral judgment is good. Their behavior is good. Doinks, I know you're playing around, but you'd be surprised. There are people who still think that is okay. And that spanking, you want to see it, go to the dad Facebook groups. I'm always amazed at how people, and here's what it comes down to, is that people use physical punishment. People use physical punishment because they don't know any other way to solve the problem. It's the same thing we do with yelling. We yell because we don't have a different solution. We don't have a better solution of solving it. So I think that is something that it just is a problem. Sorry, I'm getting messages. I'm turning off my phone, getting notifications. I thought I already did that. And we just don't have the answers to solve the problem. So that is what we do is, we yell and we do that. So do you guys want to see something cool? Actually, I don't know why, but I'm looking at my background and seeing how boring it is. Let me try something. Where is it? Hold on. I'll be right back. Stay tuned. So I can change the background. Let's see. Oh, there we go. That's way cooler. That's what I do in my videos. I should have done that all along. But does it change my lighting at all? Let's see. I could do one that color. Let's do green. How about that? What do you guys think? Vote in the chat for a color. Blue. Here's blue. I'll do blue again. Or purple. It's kind of a purplish. It makes me look yellow or orange. You know what? I actually like white. Let's try that. The white looks good. There we go. If you like a certain color, let me know. I I don't know why I thought that was cool, but because it was getting a little bit stale. I'm always looking at the background and such. I got a couple minutes here, and then I got to go. But totally forgetting that it's, oh my goodness, it's almost 8:40. I'm in Pacific time, which is late. I get up really early, so it's bedtime. You guys got some good chat going. You guys are funny. People asking newborn tips. Good chats going. Mrs. M has asked, can you please help first-time dads because he's here now and listening? Well, depends. What's your question? What specifically do you want to know? I have a lot of videos that are probably going to be a little bit more helpful than just one specific answer. Watch the videos about being a first-time dad. Here's what I will say. A lot of times we get upset and men show our emotions and our trauma and things often sometimes in different ways than women do. And so for us, and I'm not talking that this is your situation, but what happens is that, we have anxiety about being a dad. We have stress about whatever else is going on in our lives. And that sometimes can manifest itself in different ways. It can be addiction, all kinds of different addictions. It can be anger, and so when we are in heightened states of emotion, it can manifest itself in all different ways. And as a partner, that is hard sometimes to deal with. And so, I know for me, as an example, when I'm really stressed about my work, that affects how I deal with everybody in my family. I try not to let it do that, but my wife knows, and she just is like, all right, he's stressful, he's stressing out. She doesn't take it personally. And that's because we've had those talks about, like, she may say something and then I get upset, but it has nothing to do with her. It's the fact that I was upset at something else. And I think it's important for people to be more aware of that. So, if you have a specific question, I'd be happy to answer. So I will answer how evil world. How can I show my ex that I want to be in the baby's life? Well, you show her by doing it. You can say it all you want, but it's actually making a plan to meet up and spend time with the child and do it. Be very, very clear that you want to spend time with the child and do it, and spend quality time and get to know your child. So I don't know how old, if it's a brand new baby, but there is no other way other than just doing it. Talk is cheap. What you also may do is find out what your ex's love language is. And the reason I say that is she, if the child, she's the gateway to the child, you have to be really nice to her. That's just the way that it is. So she has to trust you. She has to. And so if you really want to be in the child's life, you've got to play the game, and you have to be nice to her, and you have to be empathetic towards her, and you have to support her and say, God, I know it has to be really hard, doing what you're doing. And, it might be fake at first, but you fake it till you make it. And the truth is that you have to have appreciation for her, and you've got to treat her well. if she is the one that's taking care of the child and you want to see that child. So I think you've got to make real effort, and you've got to be genuine, and you've got to be honest, and you've got to, and you got to be persistent. You don't just do it once, you do it over and over and over again. And you follow through with what it is that you say you're going to do. So you say, hey, I'm going to meet you up on Friday at 6:00, meet there at 6:00 and be there, be reliable. Yeah, that's all I can say. I mean, it's pretty straightforward. At least it seems so. Mia Caroline, my daughter has been able to get by in school and the rest of her life with very little effort, but she is no longer able to do this. How do I teach her to work harder without being overbearing? There's probably more to this story. You can't. So one of the things is having a discussion with your child of asking her, what is it that she wants, out of school, out of, if it is her school and maybe she's not doing as well as she should have. And then, it's having a mature conversation of saying, what is it that you want to do? Do you want to be a good student? Because here's the difficulty. And this one's a little bit close to my heart because I was an overachiever. I wanted my parents, to be happy. I wanted myself to achieve. I got good grades. I studied hard. I was an athlete. I stayed away from trouble. I was trying to be the perfect child. The end result of that, not end result, the end result might be okay now, but the end result for many, many years was stress, anxiety, high blood pressure, unhappiness. And until I came to terms with the fact that it's okay not to be perfect and driven all the time, it was eating me up. And so I'm very sensitive to this with my kids. And so what you do is you have those conversations, you have the conversation to say, what is it that you want to be? What is it that you want to do? And if your child says, you know what, I want to do this, and that's different from what you want, you've got to be careful of that. And I'm sensing that you don't want to be overbearing because you said that. So, up until 7th grade, it is pretty easy. Things are easy. So I think you have to have that conversation and figure out what it is that she wants. And if she doesn't want to do X, Y, and Z, are you going to be okay with that? It sounds like you want her to achieve, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but it can be difficult. And so then the other part of it is asking her if she needs help. Because let's just say, she's not doing very well. She's a little bit lazy. Here's what I will say too, is that 7th grade, that does start to happen. They want to sleep in a little bit more. They start becoming a little bit more concerned about their friends. And, I have a 7th grader as well. You've got to find out what does interest her. How she prefers to learn is another way. Sometimes people get discouraged. And then the other thing is giving her positive reinforcement. So I would give her a lot of positive reinforcement on the things that she does do well. And she may want to repeat that behavior, and say, hey, I saw that you were doing that, or, I saw that you were reading the other day, how did that feel? How did it feel to get the thing done? Or, thank you for, doing your work, or thank you for, cleaning your room, whatever it is. It's important to do that positive reinforcement. I hope that answers the question. There's a lot more context here that I don't have, but I think it is important, if you can remember, be empathetic towards her and what she might be going through in 7th grade. I don't know, her maturity. If she's going through puberty, that can cause all kinds of havoc as well. So be empathetic towards that. Find out what it is that, something could be going on, and you want to keep that communication going. So you do not want to come down hard on her, because it's not going to work. I can guarantee that one. And see if that helps, and then report back. But wow, I've been on for an hour and 10 minutes. That's a long time. I gotta get going to my house, to home, and see my family. I'm in my office right now. That's not at my house. But I do want to thank everybody. Make sure to subscribe, like the video. Although I'm not sure I'm keeping this one up. We'll see. Also, if you want more information about the course, it's starting next week. My course, it's got all kinds of stuff, private discussion. My battery's running low. Send me an email, info@daduniversity.com. Let me know you're interested in for more information. We'll have a phone conversation, see if it's a good fit for you. But everything else, I hope everyone has a great weekend. And I'll probably, try to do some more of these. But have a good weekend, and I'll see you guys soon. Take care.